Welcome to This Team is Killing Us, a podcast about what the Carolina Panthers do to good people. She is Lauren Brownlow. I am Demetri Lauren. And Lauren, what is killing me this week is not so much that there are no Panthers to root for in the playoffs. It is that I don't think any of these four teams are at all what I want to see in the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah, no, same. The way I was so sad about I say my Lions somewhat tongue-in-cheek. They're not, but I've loved them, since Dan Campbell, got up there and started crying and right. Started going for all the fourth downs. Now, that philosophy giveth and taketh, like when you have like a wide receiver do a trick play and it's fine. But anyway, and then the Ravens. I love Lamar. I have loved Lamar since his days at Louisville. He's one of the most special college players I've ever watched live. And I just love, he's one of those guys that just brings me joy to watch play football. So
adding Derrick Henry to that roster was like, to me,
wonderful.
As much as I wanted to see, because it would be crazy in our lifetime, given what we know of football, to see the Detroit Lions win a Super Bowl, right? But I do feel like
it'd be awesome.
Yeah, I do feel like Derrick Henry is the guy that was asked to do so much and made a bad team good with the Tennessee Titans, that to pair him with Lamar, it felt like it's what both of them needed. That is who I wanted to see win the Super Bowl. But, my pushback on all these teams is I am just over the Kansas City thing. Like, I've overexposed. Yeah. I do think they catch a lot of breaks. Like, it's not their fault. Stars get calls. Totally
yeah, trust me. It was way more obnoxious when the Patriots did it.
Sure. So, I am just top to bottom board with Philadelphia, even though they have a lot of Bama players that I'd love to see win a Super Bowl. I just think they're boring.
They're like the Iowa of the NFL.
Agreed. I think the Bills are boring. Now, they don't play the same way. I just am in general, I've never liked that franchise, and I can't tell you why. I just don't like them. So I
think Josh Allen is fun. I enjoy him.
Oh, sure. I'm not saying they don't have individual guys that have been at times like you go, oh, that guy is good or that guy's fun. I just don't. I don't know. They gave O.J. Simpson a home for a long time. That might be part of it.
They're fun. I don't dislike them or like them, especially. Yeah. I think any feelings I have about them that are negative are probably residual of my childhood Dolphins fandom.
Right.
Sharing the division with them and from my dad. Like, I still will never forget my dad literally LOLing when we watched the Music City Miracle live in person together. Like, no, not in person, but like live together on TV. Yeah. It was like one of our first big like football, like when I was really getting into football. So that's why it sticks out so much in my mind. He was like, haha, LOL at the Bills again. Like, he just loved it.
I have a short patience, maybe is the right way to say it. Like, you lose Super Bowl 25 on the missed field goal. Oh, God, I feel for you. You go in and get dominated by Washington, who has a quarterback that had the only good year of his entire career. Like, I feel for you. Once you lose number 3 and number 4 in a row, maybe you're just a loser, and we don't need to feel bad for you. Maybe this is your lot in life.
I don't know. I mean, my thing is like, do I feel bad for a fan base that loses in painful ways? I would be somewhat of a hypocrite if I did not feel bad, especially considering I don't want to go to your city. I don't like how much it snows there. I wish you would get a dome, but I wish a lot of places would get a dome. And that's not really anything that, people are entertaining anytime soon. I just, maybe I'm grouchy about our current state of snow here, which is way more than we usually have, which is like probably going to close us down for several days. And I hate it. And I'm tired of all you snow people that are like, ooh, I want the snow to come. Okay, cool. How about y'all have fun at home with your kids for 3 days in a row, because no one can leave if there's a patch of ice or snow anywhere in the Wake County area. I don't like you people.
I just did my regular radio thing with South Carolina, as I do every week before we record. And they asked me, like, have you been out? How much snow have you guys gotten? And my reaction was like, I'm an adult. Why would I go outside? Who cares?
Well, I took Alex out yesterday, and he wants to go out again after we record here. And that's all I'll be doing. Because the other thing is, too, it's like 10 degrees. So again, in Buffalo, no offense to you all. I'm sure, like, sometimes you were just born there and you grow up there. It's just, I don't want to go there, and I don't like the table jumping because I wouldn't want to do it, but like respect. And most of you seem like reasonable and nice people enough. You raise money for good causes. It's Panthers,
okay.
Panthers North.
I'll agree with you that they raise money for good causes. This thing they do where they squirt ketchup and mustard in the air and try and catch it with their tongues, they're not reasonable people. They're disgusting monsters.
That's just an homage to the cinema classic Dumb and Dumber. That's what I would say.
All right, so that leaves us with Washington. And look, Jaden Daniels is as fun of a quarterback as we've seen in a while. I can't look at Dan Campbell.
It's a no from me on the Commanders. No.
Is it just because of the Redskins history? Is that what it is for you? Or is it more?
Well, I think, it's a little bit of like, maybe like jealous sibling energy for me. I'll be the first to say it, in the sense that like when the Panthers were first started, I remember like trying to convert people in my life and being like, let's go. Like, we got a team. And they'd be like, well, I grew up a fan of the Commanders. I was like, ugh. Or, the Redskins once at that point. Yeah. And I'd be like, ugh, why? Like, that's not fun. Like, no one likes them. Like, come on. Like, we have a team now here. And they'd be like, no, thanks. I'd rather suffer this way. And it's like, why? We have a team here we could all suffer with together. Why do you want to continue to suffer with a team whose owner is the worst? Right. And like everyone knew that even then, by the way, like so maybe there's some like jealous sibling energy of like, why don't you want to come along? Like, why are you still choosing to root for them? Because there is still like a good contingent of people around here that like maintain loyalty to them, because that was the team that was on TV most of the time before the Panthers were around.
I cannot look at DanQuinn. I can't explain. I think it's the backwards hat, but I'm not positive.
I just see Falcons too. I see the Falcons.
The sight of him on TV makes me turn the chin. Like, it is a visceral reaction to seeing DanQuinn on television. By the way, before we get off of this, can I tell you, as bad of a human being and an owner as Dan Snyder was, can I tell you something about him that will make you go like, it's kind of adorable how childish he is sometimes. Do you know at one point, Lauren, he got it in his head that what he really needed for his corporate empire was to own Johnny Rockets? I mean, it's the dumbest. It's the dumbest piece of trivia about any NFL owner ever. It is certainly the dumbest piece of trivia I know. So then, for rooting interest, is there any part of you that's rooting for Frankie Louvu to get this done?
I mean, my heart simultaneously like rose and set. It was the weirdest thing. Like, I was like, Frankie, when I saw him make that play. I was like, Frankie, but then I was like, no, the Lions. No, I don't want them to beat the Lions, because it just marches us. I mean, look, if they beat Philly, I wouldn't hate it. But then it's like, who am I supposed to be happy for here? If we get a Super Bowl of like, let's be real, most likely like Chiefs Commander. The only interesting Super Bowl in that scenario to me would be a Commanders Bills, because then you have an aggrieved fan base off, and I enjoy that. Okay. Like, there's who has the moral high ground here in terms of the most suffering. Yeah. I would enjoy that, because really neither one could say we're so much more aggrieved and like deserving of this than the other. But that's the least likely outcome that we have possible. So it's like the Lions have eliminated our best chance to have fun, or they've eliminated our best chance to have fun at this point. The Commanders did that, I should say, and the Lions horrible that looked like the Panthers defense.
Yeah.
I mean,
it looked like Panthers defense 24 and Panthers offense 23 at times at various points during that game.
I wouldn't go that hard on them offensively, but yes.
The most interesting postseason talking outcome we could possibly get, I think, would be the Commanders beating the Chiefs, because you are going to see all of these Chiefs fans' buttholes pucker as they have to come to terms with, or not come to terms with, because I don't even think it'd be accurate, but they start to consider the idea that maybe Jaden Daniels is already ready to supplant Patrick Mahomes.
Whoa. Well, see, now you've got me going, hey.
Oh, listen, I don't think that would be a fair argument. I also don't think that is what is going to happen. I think that's the Super Bowl matchup we're going to get. But I think that all of these consecutive appearances in the championship game, his only Super Bowl loss is to the greatest quarterback of all time. I think a loss to a rookie would really send that fan base spiraling a little bit.
Maybe, yeah. I just think, like, with the way NFL narratives go, I couldn't personally handle it because it would be so dumb.
Right.
Like, I'd be like, what? Come on. Really? And also it would bother me because, like, even if a rookie beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, we wouldn't have had that conversation.
Yeah.
We just wouldn't have. When he was peaking. We would not have, everybody would have been like, oh, it's just, they would blame everything else about the team except for Tom Brady. Like, that's what would have happened. And so then it would bother me that Patrick Mahomes isn't getting stuck up for in the same way that Tom Brady was or whatever. And so it would be this whole thing. And also, like, that would just be, I don't know. That would be a lot for me. I love the way Jaden Daniels has played. He's awesome. He's super fun.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's great. I just don't know that I'm ready to go that far yet. And I don't know that I'm willing to assume that that's what we're going to get because, look, if the Eagles have proven anything this year, it's that, and no offense to the lovely city of Philadelphia and plenty of other Eagles teams past that I have enjoyed, but they have showed us plenty of times this year that they know how to ruin a good time.
Agree, but Jalen Hurts can't walk. Like, what are they going to do in this game? Like, surely they can't hand it to Saquon every down. I mean, I know they'll try, but surely they can't do that and expect to win this game.
Wait, who's their backup?
Quarterback?
Yeah.
Kenny Pickett.
Oh! Okay.
Yeah,
oh, well, now
it's over.
Concerned. I have concerns. Yeah, because I was going to say, if you told me Jalen had no offense, because Jalen, I think, has shown he's capable of making certain throws at times, but then also not way more often, puzzlingly. And so if you told me he had like an arm injury, I would have been like, oh, it's fine. But, the legs is a concern.
The legs are the gears that make the machine work. Like, I think he's a better thrower than he gets credit for, but some of the time he makes those throws happen because he can buy time with his legs.
Right. And you can never really, I don't know. He's a weird one in that way that you're like, you made that throw, but you didn't. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, let's talk about what happened with the Panthers this week. Obviously, nothing going on the field. Not a lot of significant roster movement. They signed a couple of futures contracts, but we do know Jonathan Brooks had surgery on his ACL this week. It is described as successful. My understanding, Lauren, is a successful surgery like that has no real meaning. It is basically the surgeon saying, well, I didn't make it worse.
I didn't leave anything in there that I know of.
Right.
Yet.
No
one has ever said, I've never heard, have you, unsuccessful?
Yes, I have actually. I have heard Deshaun Watson this past month, right? Like the doctors were like, yeah, we don't know that he's actually fixed after this procedure.
Oh, I just thought that was a metaphor.
Well, possibly. I don't think they called it unsuccessful, but they were like,
they can't do surgery on that one.
He keeps
what's broken in Deshaun.
That's very fair. Jonathan Brooks still likely to miss all of 2025. Do you realize he only played 5 snaps this year? Or I should say he only touched the ball 5 times this year?
I'm not surprised. It didn't seem like he was there very long. And it was the literal, even me in my broken pessimistic brain, because the Panthers always find a way to make it worse somehow than even I could dream. Even me, I was not thinking, oh, we'll get only 5 touches from him before he gets hurt again. I was assuming he would get hurt again. And I hate to say that. It's just, that's what we tend to see with these kinds of injuries. And sadly, that's what happened. And I mean, I don't know. You know how I felt about the pick to begin with. You know how I still feel about it. Obviously, even more so now. I still want the best for him as a person and as a football player. I don't think this is not good.
Yeah, no, it's not good. They're not gonna cut him. They're gonna ride this out, but that does mean there is a hole to fill because not only are they not going to have Brooks, they are definitely losing Raheem Blackshear. And that puts us in a weird place now with MilesSanders. MilesSanders technically is under contract for 2 more years, but the team has an out. So what do you do
Please
exactly?
Please take the out.
Okay, so I agree with you here. Math-wise, here is why you do it. It would count 2.95 million, so just under 3 against the cap if you void the contract. Let him move on. It's going to cost you 8.1 to keep him. You are trying to build up depth, and maybe you are only trying to build depth for a single year. I don't think you do that for an $8.1 million cap hit.
No. No offense to Miles. Like I've said my apology pieces to him, and certainly he caught the game winner. So like very awesome there, and thank you for your services.
But to be fair,
they are no longer needed.
That's the one game in the last 2 years that he had that kind of game in.
Yeah, and I mean, look, we've talked about it too. Like last year, the O-line was much worse. He was banged up and all of those things. But even back then, we could see, and even when he got back to what we thought was fuller health, we could see a marked difference between he and Chuba and the way they ran the football. Like we just could. I could anyway. I could see it, and it was driving me crazy. I'd be like, please stop handing the ball to that man and hand it to the other one. And it was one of those, it was almost like a weird sunk cost fallacy with him. It felt like, where it was like, well, we spent all this money, and it's like, so what? Like this is working better. You spent less money, but it's working better. Maybe you should use that one.
Yeah. Well, this is the other thing too, is, I will hammer home the same thing I did with DJ Wanham last week, even though it upset the Two Growls, One War broadcast, who we were very nice to, by the way. But now, eat shit, I'm right, you're wrong. At some point, if you are sitting right in the middle of the league in terms of cap picture, you got to make some tough decisions. I think logically it does make sense to keep MilesSanders for 1 more year. But when you do the math, like the math makes it impossible to justify. I think the same is true of DJ Warner.
Like if you could keep him for relatively cheap, I wouldn't have as big of an issue with it. The problem is you can't. And so like, to me, that makes it a no-brainer. Like you have an out, you need to take it. You can find another back to add to your depth somewhere else for much less money than that. So,
absolutely. Like I said, you're sitting right in the middle of cap space. You are the Panthers. You have won, 7 games over the last 2 years. You're going to have to overpay guys that you view as real difference makers to get them to come here. If you're going to move past, if you want to get past 5 wins next year, if you want to take the next step, you got to be a little bit bold. And that means cutting some guys purely for cap reasons. Although in Sanders' case, cap and performance, I think, makes the cap an even easier sell. Don't forget that the Basketball Jones is just a few days away at the Rialto, hosted by Lauren Brownlow. The night will center around our buddy Bomani Jones. Plenty of great triangle basketball names are going to be a part of this. Marcus Ginyard, Tyler Hansbrough, Lavelle Moten. We just found out Scott Wood, former NC State star, is going to be a part of the show with Ovius and Giglio as well. Tickets are on sale right now through eTix or at therialto.com. It happens January 31st. Get your tickets now for the Basketball Jones. And if you are not part of OG Fans, you can sign up right now by going to ogtrianglemedia.com. Lauren Brownlow sort of put pen to paper on what we talked about at the end of last week's episode, the case for why we should not be getting our hopes up for either Luke Kuechly or Steve Smith in the Hall of Fame voting.
Gave some reasons why we could a little, but I just, how it is on first ballot. Like it is a thing. It's not like baseball in that way. Like they're not quite so bad, but they.
Well, it's because, and I think this is, it can be frustrating when you have a really good class, but I do think this really makes you be judicious about who you're voting in and why. Like, doesn't the NFL have like, we will never take more than X and we have to get to why? Like there's a range they try and stay in, and that's what makes it different from the Basketball Hall of Fame, where it feels like if you have scored a basket, you get in eventually. So anyway, go to ogtrianglemedia.com to sign up for OG Fans today. Lauren Brownlow, I would imagine earlier this week, Dave Tepper was looking wistfully out the window, thinking about the one that got away, knowing that it's never going to happen now. BenJohnson has finally picked a team after 2 years of choosing to return as the offensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions. And I am going to throw a theory out there to you. The last 2 years, this is very much who Dave Tepper wanted. It very much was at the top of the wish list to be the Panthers head coach. I'm going to throw a theory out to you that I wonder if the Panthers didn't dodge a bullet. The history of the hot offensive coordinator becoming a head coach is not a great one. Like some recent examples, you think about Josh McDaniels, you think about Brian Dable, you think about Nathaniel Hackett. You could even put Frank Reich in that category.
Yeah, I think so. If he's the one who made that call for the trick play,
obviously,
maybe. Right. I mean, I would think so. Right. So in that case, I'm on board. No, I mean, part of it too is like a lot of teams that will hire an offensive coordinator end up being offensively challenged football teams. So that does correlate somewhat, but we could also look at those stints and remember parts that the coach in question played plenty of a role as well in terms of, but obviously like when you're being hired by the Bears to fix the Bears offense, that does feel like, it feels like a doomed quest, doesn't it? See, like, wow.
That's where, like, there are examples of this that did work out, right? Like Sean McVay with LA is the obvious one. Another one, I think Matt LaFleur
DaveCanales
with the Packers.
No, I'm just kidding.
So, so here is what I'm going to say. I don't think we can judge in year one whether or not BenJohnson was a flop or a score for the Bears unless he has an extraordinary year one, because I think what all of these offensive coordinators have to go through is what I've been pounding my fist on the table with about Canales. You have to learn the difference between calling plays and winning.
And managing a game.
Yeah, I think especially the last game with the Lions, I do wonder how much the desire to prove how big your brain is going to get in BenJohnson's way.
Yeah, and I think like you saw, I think it's a growing pain of being an offensive coach for sure. It's like you want people to see like your handiwork, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, it's what
defensive coaches are similar in the opposite way, where they, but you learning to manage a game. But I think like defensive coaches have tended to have more success quicker because they are more conservative and they're not taking, maybe they don't take as many chances. And so now it might drive you crazy to watch, but
yeah, I filled in for Ovius this week on Monday's OG, and Giglio was making this point about the aforementioned DanQuinn. And I think you can say this about a lot of defensive coaches is it is easier for them to look at an offensive coordinator and say, that is not my side of the ball. You do what you need to do.
Yes. Yes. 100%.
And I think Canales did some of that with Evero, especially as the season went on. It just wasn't a very good defense. So it's not like it can't happen for offensive coaches.
But there's more to it though, like you were pointing out though, right? Yeah. Like there's procedural stuff like getting your team in and out of the huddle on time. There's challenges, there's timeout usage, and there were certainly big time growing pains for Canales in that department. And I would expect to see some of the same from Johnson, unless he gets like, a consultant type of guy or like a head coach with experience to help him out down there. Cause like you said, I mean, it's like a feel thing. I mean, offensive coordinators are used to having a feel for like, okay, I need to call this play at this situation, blah, blah, blah. But like now you're responsible for both sides of the ball, like you said. And, it doesn't matter to you as the offensive coordinator that you're sending an unrested defense right back out on the field, but it has to matter to you when you're the head coach, or else that defense is going to be like, hey, screw you, dude.
Well, like, what are you doing to us? Not only that, like if you are the offensive coordinator and you're sending an unrested defense is going out on the field, the problem is you didn't perform, right? As a head coach, if your offense ends up with the defense back out on the field quickly, like that's going to affect your job on a side of the ball that you don't know much about. Like that's gotta be, I think, maddening for someone not mature enough. And I'm not saying that's not true or that is who BenJohnson is. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is I don't know that that's not who BenJohnson is.
Right. I think there's just a learning curve with it in terms of learning how to feel out a game and understanding that aspect of it. I think that's just natural. And I think the defensive coaches their philosophy bleeds into the offense in a negative way oftentimes too. So I'm not saying it doesn't work both ways. I'm just saying they have more success early because I think they are willing to take fewer chances. And so that keeps games closer, if nothing else, and at least gives you more of a margin for error a little bit and keeps you hanging around. Whereas you might find yourself on the bad end of a blowout real quick if you're taking chances, too many chances as the offensive minded guy. I would rather lose that way personally. That's just my personal preference. Like, rip my Band-Aid off. Like, don't leave me hanging in there for something that's not going to happen. But that's always how I have felt. And the Panthers rarely deliver in that department.
So for 2 years, this is who the Panthers wanted. They did not get him. He finally chooses to accept a head coaching offer, and it is from the Bears. Does this add to the storyline of what Chicago got that Carolina didn't?
I mean, I guess, but again, I feel like is Chicago's history of offensive ineptitude more powerful than the Bears
question.
taking the Panthers' shiny toys? Like, I kind of feel like maybe it is, because that's the storyline most people are talking about. Like, wow, taking over the Bears, huh?
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, I tend to think Caleb Williams is eventually going to be okay. I think they have a decent receiving core. They probably need to find like a bell cow kind of running back at some point. I don't feel like the Bears are hopeless on offense. That being said, Lauren, you make a good point. I have never seen them not be. So
yeah. I mean, I love Caleb Williams too. Like, I would love to see it. I wish them the best, and I'm not even saying that like condescendingly,
right?
Like, good luck for everyone involved, because BenJohnson helped bring me a lot of joy watching his Lions teams play as well. So, kudos. I don't know that, like, but again, I'm not going to be sad about it. Essentially, the Panthers are in a similar situation. And like, by the way, why would BenJohnson have come here anyways? Like, no one wanted to interview. So there's no way, like, it's not as if like the Panthers were so close to getting BenJohnson and oh no, like that was never going to happen. So like, best of luck to him. Hope it works out. And Panthers were never going to get him anyway. So,
and given this team's history, we'll see you on the way back down if it does. All right, Lauren, we are in this time period. This is where I want to wrap up today. We are in this time period of everybody putting out their lists of way too early, whatever, when it comes to on the field, but off the field, you're already starting to see people talk about what teams should do, what they shouldn't do. And obviously with the Panthers, the number one thing everybody puts out there is some form of fix the defense, fix the run defense, fix whatever, overhaul the secondary, et cetera, et cetera. But I also see for the extended columns, like here are 5 things the Panthers need to do. Here are 3 things the Panthers need to do. Everybody has an opinion on what to do with the quarterback behind Bryce. I think it's weird.
Interesting.
But it is a question worth talking about, given that both years of Bryce's career, we have seen them turn to Andy Dalton to start at least one game. Dalton, I think, got a lot of credit in Joe Person's column of teaching Bryce how to be forget quarterbacking for a second. Like, he taught him how to be a professional, I think, is
and deal with some of the pressure that comes with that, you know?
So is there value in bringing back Andy Dalton?
Look, I genuinely love Andy as a backup, and I've enjoyed watching him throughout his entire career and always felt badly for him on the Bengals, just, you know, because of the Bengals thing.
Right.
I mean, not that it's that different here, so he's right at home, you know, but it's just bad in a different way. But he's not, and I listen as a fellow old, not judging, but he's not. The only thing I would say is he's not getting any younger, and it's somewhat reminiscent to me of the Derek Anderson situation.
Okay.
When he was a longtime backup of Cam, where like it was something where whenever he had to come in and play, he performed pretty well. Everybody was pretty happy with him here. Like everybody was like, let's keep him around. And eventually he kind of got like too old to do it. And it became very clear at one point when we had to put him in. I don't remember when it was, but it was like, oh no, this isn't working anymore. Now what? Like now what's the plan B? So like maybe that's people trying to get out ahead of it a little bit. But you know, and obviously like, you know, Andy's, like we said, Andy's not getting any young. What is he now? Like 38?
30, I guess he'll be 38 before next season begins.
listen, I am 3 years older than him, but long before then, I started to feel like garbage a lot. And I know he's a professional athlete, so he probably doesn't, but like it's real. Okay. Aging comes for us all unless you never eat any tomatoes or strawberries or whatever the hell garbage Tom Brady did. So,
Nothing
like
right.
so stupid.
I don't know if that's really the rule. I'm just connecting the dots there.
I know. I don't like it. It all feels like something you'd find in like a witch's spell book. But
agreed.
I don't know.
So there have been a couple of different publications that have put out pitches for who the Panthers turn to as the backup quarterback if they are letting Dalton walk. One of them I actually love, and one of them is like, okay, you are just trying to get clicks here. The one that is clearly trying to get clicks is from The Last Word on Sports, who recommends bringing back SamDarnold. And the reason that they say to bring back SamDarnold. No, Lauren,
if that's a troll, though, it's actually incredibly funny because it both insults SamDarnold and the Panthers.
Right.
But it more insults Darnold than the Panthers. So
some team is going to take a chance on, right? Like he'll end up being the Raiders starting quarterback next year.
Yes, of course.
However,
come on.
Their reason is that Darnold can teach Bryce from the standpoint of hear me out. I disagree with this, but hear me out so I can get their thing out. From the standpoint of being a very high draft pick to disappoint and have people give up on him and bounce back. I don't know that I believe that. I also believe that you are going to be paying a pretty penny to bring SamDarnold in. Even if you're bringing him in as a backup, he's probably the number one backup on the market this year.
I don't want to get too heavily into like the racial component of this, but I think it is important when you bring up a SamDarnold in that way. Because were he a black quarterback, I firmly believe he would not have been on Minnesota this year. Sorry, I think that. He played like garbage everywhere he'd ever been. He threw it to the other team all the time. And yet everybody was still like, I really see something in this kid. And I'd be like, where is it? I don't see it. Like I get it. He has talent. And like when he has weapons around him, as we saw this year, he can do quite well. But did he still go like Darnold when they, with eventually, like, yes. And is he still going to go Darnold? Like that is just it's in his nature. So no offense to Sam, who I am genuinely I am happy for, like as a person that he had success. It's not his fault he's talked about in this way. Okay. It's not. But at the same time, it's like, it's exhausting to me. And it's like, what are we still doing here? Whatever. It's fine. He's not going to be a backup, although that's very funny and kudos to whoever did that. Like a Geno Smith would be someone to teach a lesson like that to Bryce. You know what I mean? Somebody like that. Well, Geno wasn't like a high, but still like, coming in with hype and whatever, and then like being disappointing at first and then figuring it out. Like, and I just think like someone who was genuinely like counted out completely. And so I'm not just saying like it's not just like there are other white quarterbacks that have been through those types of experiences. So I'm not just saying it's just that, but it's certainly, in my opinion, a component of it. And so Bryce has less of a margin for error than someone like a Darnold does. That's just facts.
I think if you're moving off of Dalton, I don't want a backup quarterback there to teach Bryce anything. Let Canales be the lead voice on that. And this is why I think Ben Solak from ESPN actually put out a suggestion that is really great. And if something were to happen to Bryce, I don't think ZachWilson is as talented as Bryce, but he plays the same way. Like I do think that's one of the things that stood out to me when they made the switch to Dalton is so much of the playbook opened up when they brought Bryce back because of his ability to extend plays in the pocket. I don't think the world of ZachWilson as a quarterback, but as a backup, I could see that being a good fit here.
I mean, I don't hate it. It does reek of they do play more similarly. You're right. It does reek a little bit of when the Panthers brought in like, oh, well, the Jets are a mess, so it can't get any worse.
I disagree. I disagree because when they brought in Darnold thinking the Jets are a mess. All he needs is a change of environment to be what we thought he was. I don't think they're looking at Zach Wilson as this guy was deserving of being the number.
Well, that's true, and it's for a backup, right? So
right.
we get that, and that's a different connotation because that was always my thing with bringing Darnold. I'm like, for what? For starting, I'm like, why?
Yeah.
That was always my thought on it. And so, I don't know. And again, we see it because he played well for the Panthers for a little while as well. Like he has stretches where he plays well, Darnold, whatever. I'm getting too into the weeds on Darnold, but you kind of, you get what I'm saying. Like
for sure.
You get chances.
I'm going to give you two options here that I think would work out really well. One, if you want to do the former Panther thing, if he's interested in continuing for another year, why not Teddy? Why not Teddy Bridgewater?
I would love that. I would love that.
And if the former Panther thing is not so important to you, why not Jacoby Brissett? I mean, again, you are talking about two guys that, just like Bryce, they are not going to set the world on fire with their legs, but they can move around the pocket long enough to.
They can scramble, yeah.
Right. I think Teddy Bridgewater has proven that he has always been an excellent decision maker, and I think Bryce is too. So I don't think there would be much change if you had to change. But also, I think both of these guys have been journeyman backups at this point in their career long enough that they can add something to the locker room without detracting from the focus that needs to be on Bryce as the guy.
I would love that. I covered Jacoby in college. Wonderful person, like just really sweet and kind. And so I've always liked Jacoby and I've always been happy when he's done well and had this long career. I love it for him. And Teddy, though, I don't know that he would come. I don't know if he would come back. He doesn't. And understandably, like he wasn't treated great and Tepper was here then. And so I don't know.
Well, and on top of that,
I come here.
I think he was like, I don't know what happened. It might have been
he was done dirty.
Yeah, but I was just saying, like, for his career, I don't know if it was a Dan Campbell thing or a BenJohnson thing. Like, he said he was done. He had taken a high school coaching job, and then all of a sudden, at the last minute, decided to go back to the Lions. So I wonder if he even wants to play anywhere anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, his injury was pretty bad, and like you don't. You never really come back the same. But I really liked him when he was here. I didn't love him. Like the thing is, you knew he wasn't going to be your franchise guy. But what I wanted him for was what Tepper didn't have the patience for.
Right.
Was to have him be a bridge just until you find your future guy. That's what I wanted. And Tepper was like, I want to win games right now, and then made them suck worse for like, just because he got greedy, in my opinion. And like Teddy would have been fine.
I think that maturity both in terms of mental maturity and physical, been in the league a while
100%.
Behind Bryce. I think it would benefit Bryce. I really do. But I think
and somebody's been through a lot of scrutiny,
Absolutely. And I think both of those guys, Jacoby and Teddy, have been through that in a way where they are not going to come in looking to supplant. They're not going to come. They understand the importance of a united locker room. I like Zach Wilson as a matchup of skills. I like Teddy and Jacoby as that's what the team actually needs in a backup.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate any of those. Obviously, like just, as long as I can get it for relatively cheap and whatever. But I mean, some of the backup plans they've had in years past were just not viable. And so it would be nice to have a plan as good as this year's was, which AndyDalton's was a great one to have around in more than one way. Because you would love to have a guy there that genuinely wants your quarterback to succeed.
Right.
Because that's the best job in the NFL, really, in my opinion. Backup quarterback, especially if your quarterback doesn't get hurt. Like Jim Sorge, forget it. That guy had the best job ever.
AndyDalton was the most popular guy in Charlotte until he actually got in, and he was no better than the situation with Bryce. Well, like I agree with you. It is the best.
Well, that's how Derek Anderson was at times. Remember, but then like,
Lauren, I was told that he was actually better than Cam Newton.
People are very dumb, but like honestly, like people would like do that, but then when he would play again, this is the case with a lot of backups. When he would play long enough, people would be like, "Oh, right."